Hello and welcome to another Typical Borough podcast. As always, I'm your host Steve Dixon. I'm pleased to say we are back to full strength today. I have, as always, Mr. John Cutler with me. All right, John?
Morning, chaps.
And back from his excursions in France, showcasing his artwork, Mr. Graham Bandy completes the team. Welcome back, Graham.
Thank you very much. Morning, boys. You good?
All good.
Well, I was good today, actually, until I opened my eyes. Now, that's always a good thing at our age when you open your eyes and you realise that you're actually still alive. But then that horrible feeling for the first time in a while dawns on you and you think, pick up your phone, and, oh yeah, the Borough got beat, didn't they?
Right.
The Borough lost, and then it's just that horrible feeling in the pit of your stomach when you wake up in the morning and you haven't got that feel-good factor. So I was a little bit down this morning, but we'll get into all that. We've been on a good run, but unfortunately the Borough suffered the first defeat, 1-0 against Portsmouth, on the back of a 0-0 draw against Stoke City. So no goals in a week, boys. 1 point out of 6. 1 win in the last 5. For the first time, a little bit of a bump in the road for Rob Edwards. We'll go back through the games briefly, but we've got other stuff to talk about. About tactics and players and selections and all the rest of it. We'll get into all that, and we've got some fantastic questions from you, the listeners and the supporters. They've sent in some great questions for the boys to answer as well. But we'll just briefly go back to the Tuesday night. I'll start with you, Graham. Just 0-0 against Stoke City. We changed to a back 4. Brown and Napan come in for Whittaker and Callum Britton, who was suffering from a cut on his foot. 0-0. Decent point it felt on the night, but Middlesbrough puffed a little bit on the night.
As the game wore on and the clock ticked away, I think a point was most welcome, really, because they looked like the most likely team to go on and win it. They had a great second half, by the way. They adjusted things, made a substitution, brought the blonde lad on in the middle of the park who started to dictate and played really well for them. Never got a grip of him. But first half, we probably should have put them to bed. Couple of good chances. Keeper made a couple of good saves. Strelak hit a good shot. And we were unlucky, really, first half, not to go in maybe 1 or 2 up. But for some reason, like you say, they switched it up and we couldn't sort of combat that. They were the far better team second half. So quite content with the point. We looked a little leggy in that second half, and this great run we've been on seemed to be coming to an end, really, in the Stoke game. And then obviously we'll touch on what happened yesterday, because I think that had an effect as well. But yeah, a good point all in all. Stoke were riding high. They're still up there. They're a strong team. Made it very difficult for us. We couldn't break them down. Probably wouldn't have scored if we would have played till midnight on that night. So yeah, a welcome point. As we didn't get beat, that's paramount. If you're going into games and you're not losing, you're giving yourself a good platform to kick on and get some points from the next game. But it wasn't to be yesterday.
Just for the point of fairness, the blonde lad in midfield for Stoke is Thomas Rigo, who's from Slovakia, the same as David Strelec. He come on at half time.
He made a massive difference. Yeah. He was horrible, really. He was a physical presence, getting his foot in, and we just never got going that second half. It was a non-event for us. So
Cuts, just another player that had a big impact on the night for me was Sol Bryn. Some excellent saves on the night against Stoke. Probably Middlesbrough's, in my opinion, man of the match. Good to see Sol Bryn stepping up on Tuesday night.
Yeah, just before we mention that game, before we get all doom and gloom and 1 win in 5, just remember it's only 1 defeat in 9, so glass half full, chaps. I thought Bryn was excellent. That Sorba Thomas against Silvera was a massive threat all night. He absolutely tortured him, to be fair. It's not a criticism of Silvera. It's just, obviously, that was the weak point for us on the night. I think especially second half, they were well on top. But Bryn was excellent. And I'm like you. At the end of the game, I looked at it as a point gained, not 3 points lost, because they absolutely battered us second half, and they'll have left Riverside on Tuesday night thinking, how did we not get 3 points? So, yeah, point gained for me. Put it on the board. Move on.
Overall, I don't think we were too comfortable switching to a 4. We've been familiar with that, the 3-4-2-1 all season. It's worked a treat for us. Losing Britton was a massive blow for me, and he's the outball on that right-hand side pretty much every game. So we really, really missed him, and I don't think we got to grips with them at all, really. Like I say, though, we did have a couple of good chances first half. We played okay, but we've played a lot better than that.
Yeah. Sorry if you see me fiddling around there. I forgot to plug something in there, so I was just putting the plug back in on the old laptop. Yeah. So I thought it was a decent point on the night. We moved on to Portsmouth again. It's a long trip down for them Borough fans. I thought it was tremendous. 2,100 fans made the trip all the way down to the south coast. Amazing. Well done to each and every one of you that went down. Nice to see Rob Edwards put that letter out in appreciation to the supporters before the
Great
game
touch.
as well. Nice touch from the club. Something we've complained about in the past, the club not being on the front foot for things like that. Well, that seems to be improving of late with Middlesbrough. So well done to Middlesbrough Football Club for that. Unfortunately, it wasn't so good on the pitch. Obviously, Portsmouth 1, Middlesbrough 0. Went down to a Yang goal on the 23rd minute. Cuts, 4 changes. Dale Fry, Hansen, Britton, Calais Sen all come into the side for the injured George Edmondson, who's tweaked his hamstring. Severin Apan, Brown and Strelets all dropped out the side. What was your thoughts on the starting lineup? I know hindsight's a wonderful thing. We've been beaten now, but what was your thoughts before the game on the starting 11?
I'm not here to hang players out, but I was surprised Hansen started, to be honest. I think he's looked okay and quite lively as an impact sub, but I think to start the game with him, I think he's still a bit off for me. Like, so I personally wouldn't have started Hansen. Sene's done really well as well when he's come off the bench and looked lively. So you couldn't really argue with that. But yeah, I probably wouldn't have started with Hansen. I'd have probably put Naipan in there or even Brown, who I thought was pretty good against Stoke Tuesday night.
Bandy, what was your thoughts on the starting 11 before the game?
John's just mentioned the 2 players who I think should be on the bench and coming on and making an impact, because I believe that's where they're best served for us. I keep going back to Conway. He's playing him out position as that 10. It's like a fish out of water. It was like when we played Sene at Preston on the left hand side, and then we moved him in. It doesn't work. We've got to play Tommy as the 9, and then you're picking and choosing who plays behind him. However, there is an option now. I've been thinking that we could switch it up and go 2 up top and play Naipan in that hole. So you can still play your 3 at the back. You can play your 4 across. You can play Naipan in that free zone, the Juninho role like we mentioned the other week, and then 2 up top, because we seem to be, we're not creating many chances, but thankfully early part of the season, the chances we were creating, we were putting away. The last 3 games, we've not served up too much. So I still think he's trying to find that formula, that dynamic. We did have connections all throughout the pitch. You know, we had obviously the wing backs were working well, the 3 centre backs, the 2 in midfield. But I don't think he's found that formula yet up front, and he's still trying to find a way to get Strelak in the team, to get Conway in the team. Obviously, the form of Calais Sene does warrant him a start. To be fair, he got that great goal at Southampton, and he scored in the home game. So he's staked to claim. However, I just don't see him as a starter, if I'm honest. I think we need to play to Tommy Conway's strengths. He seemed to be ticking along quite nicely. We were getting the ball wide. Fullbacks were bombing on. They were getting crosses. To get the best from him, you need to play wide players and get the ball in quick into the box so he can get a toe on things and get ahead of his man. He's been asked to run channels. It's not his game. He's just getting frustrated. He spends more time now when he's playing out wide on the floor, being fouled and remonstrating with the referee. He's a big bag of frustration for me at the moment, albeit he's working very hard for the team, but I don't think it suits him. So he's got to find that formula quick, starting with Conway as a striker, not as a 10.
It's a good point you made there, and I've got to be honest, you've just, I probably slightly disagree with both of you regarding the Tommy Conway at the moment. You've just said what I think. He's a big bag of frustration at the moment, and I liken it to remember when Bernie Slaven got pushed out wide left to accommodate Peter
I mentioned
Davenport.
that yesterday to my son.
Yeah, and he got pushed out wide. Now
Bernie stuck him on the wing, didn't he?
Bernie works hard. He was a goal scorer, but he wasn't quick enough to be in that position. He wasn't skillful enough to be in that position. Bernie was a goal scorer, and I think Tommy Conway comes under that category more. And for me, Tommy Conway at the moment wouldn't be my starting 11. That might sound controversial. A few people might not agree with me, so I'll give me reasons. Tommy Conway, he's got 2 goals in 9 games this season, which, you know, that's we're not scoring a lot of goals. We've only scored 12 all season, but he's got 2 and 9. If you add last season into it, he's got 5 and 22 or 5 and 21 league games. So he's not really, since the back end of last season, coming to this season, being on great form. I think Tommy Conway himself is frustrated with how things are going out wide. I don't think it's his game. I don't think he's a number 10. I don't think he'll ever be a number 10. I think he's a centre forward. I think it suited him, the formation that Michael Carrick playing the 4-2-3-1, where he had 3 players behind him. He had, a little bit of pace wide. He had the guile of Azaz behind him, slotting balls through. That was Tommy Conway's game more. This formation for me doesn't really suit Tommy Conway, and I feel the fault with Tommy lands at the door of Rob Edwards, because I feel he's trying to accommodate Tommy Conway because of the players we've signed. But if Rob Edwards is going to be the manager we think he is, he's got some tough decisions to make, because for me, I would start Calais Sen as the number 9. I think he's got the pace. I think he's got the hold-up ability. And what Calais Sen could do with is people behind who can create. Now, for me, we have got players who can create. Strelec plays in that position for Slovakia. I would start Strelec and probably Svera Nepan behind Sen at the moment would be my front 3. I would have Hansen and Conway is that bag of energy to come on in the last half an hour, 20 minutes. Hansen for his creative skills, and Conway because of his work rate. So for me, I would go Sen up front, Strelec, Nepan behind, and Conway to come on for Sen when he tires and work them for the last 25, 30 minutes as a centre forward. Now, you can't do that every game in the Championship, I know, because 46 games, so you can rotate, which you've got to do. But I think Rob Edwards now, moving forward after this international break, has really got to pick his favourite 3 players in if he's going to keep this formation and stick to it. Because I think it's coming apparent now that it's not working up front. And I think part of the reason, guys, why it's not working up front is rotation. What's been good about Middlesbrough this season? Well, I tell you what's been good. The back 5, when they've all been fit, have looked really, really good at the back defensively. And that's because we've had a bit of continuity. I know we've had to change the centre-backs of recent times because of injury. But if all fit, I think me and you could all pick our favourite back 5 quite easily. What's worked well this season is the 2 holding midfield players, and Aidan Morris and Hayden Hackney, sitting in there. We all would pick them if everybody's fit. But what hasn't been good is that front 3 rotating, taking players off after 45 minutes and switching things. So, just my opinion at the moment, I think Tommy Conway could maybe do with being removed from the starting 11, sitting on the bench, having a look at A, how we play from the bench, B, maybe coming on is the legs for a Calais Sen in the last half hour of games. That's just how I see it. What would you go with Bandy if you're picking your front 3?
Looking at the game yesterday, we played into their hands by playing Senate. They just sat back, so there's no space behind for him to exploit. They just played basically a back 5. They had a back 4, and then when we pressed them, they had Marlon Pack, the oldest player on the pitch, their captain, 34, I believe. He ran the game for them. He just sat in. The 2 centre-backs split. He dropped in. And then the 4 forwards just dropped back in. So we were trying to break down 9 players, plus a keeper. And they just left 1 up top in case they got a ball out to him. So it didn't work. That's going to happen quite regularly, I think, if we're playing pacey forwards. Teams are just going to sit in, and we're going to continually find it difficult. We found it difficult under Michael Carrick to try and break teams down, because we do have an array of attacking talent now. But like you said, Dicko, we could flip a coin and it might land on heads, and someone will say, "Oh, tails." Which conundrum, which formula do you go with? It's so tricky at the moment. But he's got to try and establish a connection quite quickly. Otherwise, we're going to be sort of bypassing games and not doing enough to get the points from them. On the positive, we don't look like we're going to get beat. So I do think we're going to pick up points. But we need to turn these draws into wins as well.
Cuts, I know you're a fan of Tommy Conway's, and maybe you would start him, but would you agree with me, if you are going to start him, he needs to be the number 9 rather than number 10? I mean, look at his stats yesterday, for example. I know he wasn't the only one, but Conway was the one that played out the forwards that played the full 90-odd minutes. Expected goals for Tommy Conway yesterday, 0.15. Expected assists by Tommy Conway yesterday, 0.04. Shots on target, none. Shots off target, none. I mean, surely those statistics are damning on your number 10. If those are the stats that are coming out with your number 10, he's got to be a number 9, hasn't he?
So, with the greatest respect, take all them stats with a pinch of salt. It's absolute poppycock. We could have had Cristiano Ronaldo playing yesterday, centre forward. What do you want him to do? What's he supposed to do yesterday?
But he was playing as a number 10, not a number 9, so he's got his jobs to create, is it not?
But look at the amount of players he's trying to create against.
Exactly. So everyone's entitled to an opinion, but for me, the opinion's wrong that you bring Conway out with that team. I'm like Bandy. I would love to see Conway and Strelic up front together and let them build a partnership. We've got a point coming up later in the podcast that's absolutely bob on. I would love to see the two of them play together, build up a relationship, maybe put Naipan in the 10 role behind them, like Bandy said. We've got two fullbacks there that are high energy. They can get up and down the wings, so they can create the balls coming into the box. No way do I take Conway out of that team.
I think we're trying to complicate things with these two 10s. You've seen it at Man United with Amorim. He still doesn't have a bloody clue what he's doing with these two 10s either. So we've got to find that formula quick. If we do play with one in the hole, it just gives more space to the fullbacks. If we've got Britain bombing on, we've got Target bombing on, he gets to a certain stage and he doesn't know whether to go beyond to play a 1-2 and get behind, or to just drop the ball into that 10 role. If you have maybe Whittaker out there or Hansen, whoever plays in that 10. But we do need to find that formula quick, because it's gonna sort of cost us, really, I think, if we don't get it gelled as quick as possible.
If he decides after international break cuts to be stubborn and stick with it with this formation, because it has served well. We've only lost one, as you said, in the 9 games. We're sitting second in the league, and he wants to persist with it. What would you do with Tommy Conway Cuts?
I'd play him. It's that for me.
Where would you play him?
He'd play centre forward.
Centre forward, right? Okay.
I'm the same. I think
so
you've got.
Would you agree it's not? Would you agree it's not working for him in the 10, though, guys?
Yeah, that's 100%. I think if you asked him, he would say, "You're joking. I don't like playing out there." However, he's a member of the team. He's an integral member of the team. For me, he's the catalyst. He's the workhorse. He sets the standard for everybody else. You know, he's running blind alleys. He's running channels. He's running into brick walls. But he's putting a shift in. You can't complain about that. However,
no.
He's becoming frustrated by doing that, because he's not being able to play his normal game. I think you've got Conway and Sene competing for a 9 position, and then you've got Hansen and Whittaker competing for a 10.
Naipan.
But he can play left, he can play centre, he can play right. Whittaker can only play on the right. Hansen, he probably could play anywhere across that line behind the strikers. But yeah, we've had players who've showed flashes. And I still think Edwards is trying to find that formula. So he's got to find it fairly quickly, but no panic, no panic just yet, because we're not going to lose many games. That defence is pretty solid. And I think yesterday you just got to put that down to them being crafty. They made it so hard for us yesterday. Clever management, clever setup. They're not the greatest of teams, but they're a steady, solid, aggressive side, and we just couldn't break them down. And probably wouldn't have brought them down if we'd have carried on till midnight.
Just a point on yesterday, Bandy. You're on about yesterday how they'd done a job on win, and they did. They basically got what they wanted, which was to nick a goal and then sit with 10 behind the ball and really frustrate with. But I thought what was really poor from Middlesbrough yesterday, which hasn't been so far this season, was with 2 instrumental midfield players, Hayden Hackney and Aidan Morris. I thought they both had off days. The passing was terrible, and for whatever reason, and I don't know why, they were sitting really deep. They were sitting right in front of our back 4 times, and I thought there was a huge gap between our midfield in our forward 3, which was evident. With them putting the 10 behind the ball, sort of smothered Hackney and Morris into areas in front of our back 4, and there was no link-up play between the midfield and the front 3 to get going. And I thought during the game that would have been tweaked earlier than it was. And for the first time, I thought this season, Rob Edwards got his substitutions wrong. And I thought at half-time, he needed to go to that back 4. You could see the way they were set up with the 1-0. They weren't going to change their tactics, and they just sat in and made it difficult for her. And he didn't actually change to a back 4 until the 70th minute. And I think if you had done it earlier, I think Middlesbrough might have got something from the game. And where we've waxed lyrical about Rob Edwards during the previous 8 games, making them changes at the right time, bringing on the right personnel. In my opinion, yesterday, he brought Strelets on for Hansen on 59 minutes. I thought Hansen was, not that he was brilliant, but he was probably Middlesbrough's best forward yesterday. He created Middlesbrough's most chances statistically, which was basically 2. And I thought Hansen was the only one that looked like breaking the lines with a little run or a little pass. I thought that was a wrong move for me personally. Brown for Ayling on 70 minutes was the right move, but it was too late. It was 70 minutes instead of 45 minutes for me, so it was late. Napan coming on was the right move, but he took the wrong person off. For me, Conway should have come off for Napan, and Sen should have stayed on because he's the only player that's got pace and he's the one who's in form scoring goals at the minute. Why take off your player that's in form scoring goals with pace? Why take him off? That happened on 70 minutes. And then the other 2, Bergzog for Target, meh. And then Whittaker came on for Hayden Hackney. Again, I didn't agree with that. I would have kept Hackney on and Hayden Morris would have got the hook because Hackney out the 2 is the one that's going to get a shot off on the edge of the box or create something. So yesterday, it was just, I think, a bad day at the office for Rob Edwards and Middlesbrough. That they weren't at it. The players weren't at it for whatever reason, tiredness, whatever you want to throw at it. And I think we got the substitutions wrong. Go on, Cuts, go on.
I think it's interesting how people see games. You're saying there that you thought Hansen was our biggest threat and anyone who was step out and creating chances. Well, for me, he was trying to take people on the halfway line, in the wrong positions, losing the ball, putting us under pressure. Now, for me, I would have hooked him yesterday. I think that's something he needs to get into his game. I don't mind wingers taking people on in the final third and losing the ball, but certainly not on the halfway line. Puts the team under pressure. I think. But
as I said before, Cuts, is that's because our 2 midfield players, for me, were sitting too deep. So like the Hansen in that up front, they were dropping deep themselves to try and get on the ball because there was a huge gap between the forwards and the midfield. So they were having to come back to the halfway line to try and get on the ball to then try and go forward and create something. And Hansen, for me, was the only player in a Middlesbrough shirt that was taking people on. We've lacked that lately for me, Middlesbrough. We're very sort of keep possession based the last 4 or 5 games, whereas I think the previous games at the start of the season we've seen a little bit more, I don't know, players taking chances, whether it be Napan taking people on, having to go. That seems to have come out the team the last few weeks for me, and I don't understand why.
Because teams are working us out the way we play. You saw it against Stoke. You saw it against Portsmouth. It's going to happen again in many other games. But look, touching back on Hayden Hackney and Hayden Morris, they were probably so deep because Hansen kept giving the ball away. So they've got to sit in and protect that defence. They'll be saying, what are you doing losing the ball there? Get forward, lose it further up the pitch. But Cuts is spot on. He lost it. I counted 3 times on the halfway line. Which I don't mind. I like seeing players trying to take players on, but you've got to be assured enough that you're going to actually beat your man and not put your teammates in trouble.
The one time he did lose it, Bandy, which was evident, was the goal, actually.
Yeah.
He took a man on and he was getting pulled back by his shirt, was getting pulled.
Yeah,
and
which was a foul, by the way.
It was a foul, yeah. The referee didn't give it.
Yeah.
And they've broke on luckily for us, the ball fell to Hackney. Hackney then done a dreadful pass, give it straight back to Portsmouth. It broke on the left-hand side.
It was a great goal, by the way.
Cross to the back post. The guy comes in on the right-hand side, cuts the ball back for Yang, who comes on. Side foot finish just inside the box. Solbrin, poor mistake for me. Ball goes in centre of the goal. He had 2 hands on it. A bad moment for Solbrin. He was man of the match on Tuesday night. Unfortunately, yesterday, a mistake by Solbrin. And unfortunately, that was the goal that won the game. So, it was. Can we just file this under one of those days for Middlesbrough?
Yeah.
A typical Borough day?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. We just didn't get to grips from the first minute, really. They just seemed to, dare I suggest, they wanted it a little bit more than us. They won every 50-50, second ball. They were in our faces. They stopped us playing. They pressed us hard. They packed bodies through midfield and defence. So we just couldn't get behind them, couldn't break them down. You've got to credit the opposition sometimes. When 2 teams are going at it, you can't win every game. Good teams get beat by bad teams. So I just think they're a middle of the road side. workmanlike, and they were very, very well organised, and they found a way to break us down, and they got a brilliant goal on the counter when we lost possession. So you got to credit them, and we just didn't do enough on the day. We never looked like we were going to do enough. So yeah, put it down to a bad day at the office. But if we can't keep saying that every week, we started that with Carrick last season. Another bad day. Oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Before you know it, you've dropped 5 places in the table, and you're mid-table, and you're going nowhere. So just got to be careful that we don't get into that comfort zone of thinking we're good enough to turn up and win games. So we've got to just be a little bit more assertive in games, but be crafty as well.
Bandy, you mentioned, alarm bells starting to ring. If teams are working out tactics wise, that's one win in the last 5 games. Should we be concerned by that? The fact that you've said teams are cutting on to how we play. Do you think we need to change with tactics moving into the international break when we come back, or do you think it's just a one-off game and we've got to go back to what served well and continue on that path?
I think it's a one-off game. I really do. Everybody was bad. I couldn't even pick a player yesterday who probably warranted a 7 out of 10. Possibly Alfie Jones. He kept digging in. He got that block where the guy nearly scored. He just put it wide. Got a few toes on things in the box, but yeah, he wasn't great. Nobody played well yesterday, and a few of them had some serious stinkers yesterday. But you just got to put that down to one of them crazy days. We never got to grips with the weather. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, but there was a swirling wind. How many set plays did we have where the ball sailed over everybody's heads? Matt Targett couldn't put a corner in properly. He kept going over everybody. We had numerous opportunities to take free kicks. They were overhit. Naipan swung one in, went over everybody's head. So it was just one of them crazy days. Forget it. But seriously work on that front 3, front 4, whatever you want to call it, formula, because that is going to be integral to us picking up points. We've got teams hot on our heels now. We've been overlapped by Coventry, who scored 27 goals this season. So they've had a very good start. I've got some stats here. So we've won the same amount of games as Coventry, but they've drawn more, but they haven't lost. So we've lost now. So it's how we react. So I wouldn't worry too much about yesterday. Let's go into that Ipswich game. I think Maddo said, let's absolutely wallop them.
Cuts coming.
I think we've sat here and we've disagreed about certain things. I think one thing we can all agree on, that they should have a fine box, and if Morris shoots with his left foot again, he has to put some money in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was diabolical yesterday, wasn't he? Let's be honest.
If he could shoot, he wouldn't be playing for us. Trust me. That's why he's here. He's a bloody good footballer, though, and we need him in that middle of the park. But again, he'd admit himself he was awful yesterday. He couldn't pass water.
Unfortunately, it looks like he isn't going to be available, though, guys, for the next game against Ipswich, because he's away with America, playing in the USA. In the games, it's stupid o'clock in the morning on the Wednesday. So Middlesbrough are going to have to rejig for Ipswich. We won't be with Sammy Silvera either, because America are playing Australia. So we are going to have to rejig when we do come into the Ipswich game. Now, the next question I'm going to ask is, I think the next 6 games, that'll put us to 15 games played. That's a good mark on the Championship. After 15 games, you get an idea of who's going to be in and around the playoffs, who's going to be challenging for those top 2 positions. So our next 6 games, obviously Ipswich at home on the Friday night, and we're away to Sheffield Wednesday, who got walloped yesterday of Coventry. We're at home to Wrexham, away to Watford, away to Leicester, and home to Birmingham City. And a bit of a mix there for me. So the question I'm going to start with you, Cuts, is, do you think after those 6 games, Middlesbrough will still be in and around challenging for the top 2 positions? Because the league, as we know, can change very, very quickly. I mean, we've only lost 1 in 9 games yet. If we were to lose, say, the next game against Ipswich, we could be hanging onto our coattails to stay in a playoff position. That's how tight, because everybody's bunching behind we now. Do you think this Middlesbrough side, because I've asked this question before in previous weeks when everything's been going well, and that's why I'm asking it again, because we're first bumping the road and we're starting to question players or tactics, as all supporters do. So I'm just coming to you at the moment with those games I've listed there. Do you think when those are all said and done, this Middlesbrough side will still be good enough to be challenging for those top 2 positions?
Well, I'm certainly not going to change my mind after the first defeat in 9 league games. I think You talk about tactics and all that. Why would you rip something up that's been working so well since the start of the season? If you'd have said it was before the season that we'd be second going into this international break, we'd have snapped our hands off. Let's just have a bit of common sense here of how well we've done up to now. Yes, yesterday was a bit of a write-off. But let's hope we come back. A real tough game against Ipswich, by the way. They might be near the bottom of the league. There's no way they're going to be there at the end of the season. They've spent a fair bit of money. They've got some good footballers in that team. Tough game. If we can come out that with a win, there's no reason why we can't beat anybody in this league. But as we seen yesterday, and I say it all the time, you can also lose to anyone in this league. Do I think we'll be in the round? Yes, I do. And I think we will be at the end of the season. I've seen enough positives from what Rob's done with this squad and what the players have done on the pitch to say, why can't we? Let's believe we can do it. Glass half full, as I hope said to you too.
It's okay believing it, Bandy, but the players have still got to do it. Do you think this Middlesbrough squad after the next 6 games will still be challenging those top 2 positions, or do you think we've been, as you said a little bit earlier, possibly found out a little bit in the last few weeks?
I wouldn't say found out. It's common sense how to play against us because every team knows how we play now. We push the full-backs high, or wing-backs, how you want to call them. But we're up there for a reason because we've formed a solid base. We're not leaking goals. We've got a really, really good defence. It's been a miraculous start. You know, I never ever thought we'd hit the ground running as good as we have done. But we are there for a reason, and that's because of damn good management, good recruitment, and a good system which suits the personnel that we've got. The only qualm for me is the front three, which isn't a massive problem. We're talking minor tweaks here to get a little bit more from them. But overall, we've got a really good team, and we thoroughly deserve to be in that top 2. The only reason we're not at the top now is because Coventry are just scoring goals for fun. 27 goals in 9 games is outrageous. It really is. But they leak a few more than us, so that might even itself out over time. They'll hit some bumps in the road, I'm sure, and it's how they react. But no, I'm pretty confident we'll be, whether it's not the top 2, we'll certainly be in the top 4. Because we do have some more tricky games. You mentioned Leicester there; they've crept up as I'd expect them to. I'm sure Southampton, by the time we get round to playing them again, that'll be way into the season. They'll be up there as well. Ipswich will recover. They'll come good as well. So there's going to be some strong teams up there, but we're one of them, thankfully. But with a few tweaks, we could be even better. We're talking about not quite firing at the moment, and we're second. So that bodes well, to be honest, if we can get that formula sorted up front. And I'm sure he's working on it. He won't have slept last night. He'll be like, should I have started Tommy? Should I have started Naipan? He'll be having the same conversation with his coaches as what we're having now, I'm sure. But, you know, you can be certain that he'll be trying his damnedest to get it sorted sooner rather than later.
Cuts, you want to come in there?
Yeah, I think 3 of the games you mentioned there, Ipswich, Birmingham and Leicester, they're games that, for me, they're going to attack. They're not going to sit deep and 10 men behind the ball.
Yeah.
So they're games that with some of the pace we've got up front, Hansen, Sene is pretty quick, Conway can run. They're games that, for me, could be advantageous to how we play. Getting the full-backs, getting the wing-backs, whatever you say, in behind their defence when they're trying to create against us. This isn't a criticism of Portsmouth, but they were never going toe-to-toe with us yesterday.
No.
And like
that's
Bandy
why
said,
we've got to respect the opposition at times, you know.
you've got to work with what you've got. So we've got to find a way of getting around that. And like I say, them games where they're attacking us, I think it could be better for us, to be honest.
I think part of the problem now is, and you've both brought up great points, is I think the opposition now are respecting us. And what I mean, and that's why it's become more difficult for, because early on in the season, we were a little bit of an unknown package. We hadn't signed many players. We had a new manager. And I think teams fancied the chances to beat Middlesbrough. And even though we were low in terms of possession stats, 40-odd%, we were sitting in with a solid back 5, and teams were thinking they could beat one and have a go at it. And we were exploiting them on the break. Norwich springs to mind. And we were getting in behind them and picking them off at will.
Yeah.
And getting the points on the board. I think now teams are realising that this Rob Edwards side and the players were brought in later in the window are actually of high quality, and they're respecting us now. So the last few games, when you think of the teams that we've played, like say Preston's and stuff, yesterday Portsmouth, Stoke City even, they're solid against us now. They're respecting what we can do on the break.
Yeah.
I think that's a conundrum now moving forward over the next 6 games that Rob Edwards is going to have to try and work out. How can he get Middlesbrough to stay solid, yet still be a threat and get at teams and score goals and cause them problems? And that's why I think it's going to be hugely important that he settles on a front 3, whichever formation he does, and sticks with it for the next 4, and says to those players, listen guys, for the next 4 or 5 games, you're me men. Whether you score, you don't score. Whether you play well, I don't play well. You're in the team for the next 4 or 5 games. Forge a relationship, forge partnerships, and see how you go. And if it doesn't work after that, then I can switch it up. But I think we need to have a little bit more, continuity throughout the side, not just at the back 5.
Yeah, would be nice. In the pod before last, we touched on him giving players. It seems to me he's like a junior coach at the moment. He's giving players. He's giving players sort of equal game time just to keep everybody happy. Maybe in time we might see a ruthless streak to Edwards, where if you don't do it, you're out of the team quickly. He's shown that in his substitutions. He's giving players opportunity to impress, and if they're not impressing, then he's hooking them. I would have hooked two yesterday. I'd have brought Naipan.
You did say hooking them there, didn't you?
I definitely said hooking them. Whoa, what sort of show is this? I would have brought Naipan on and Strelec at half time yesterday, because that 15 minutes is valuable. You can't wait too long. I don't want him to go into that habit. We saw that with Carrick, and games were passing us by, and before you know it, the whistle's gone, and you've not imposed yourself on the opposition. So, yeah, hopefully we'll find that formula. We're going to be talking about this for the next 6 months, aren't we?
It's a great analogy, that, Graham. Great analogy about the coach, Graham.
Well,
I've
been a junior coach for 10.
You can just see
For 10
Strelets
years.
and Senna's mum and dad sitting in the main stand, high fiving each other at half time and saying, "It's Senna's chance second half now." It's
Yeah,
great.
and then you get the parents coming over after saying, "Why didn't you put my son on?" It's like, oh.
Hanson's mum and dad at after the game coming over saying, "Why wasn't my son playing?" Yeah. We'll get into some questions because we've got loads from the fans. Obviously, when you do tend to lose, people want answers, people want your thoughts. So thanks for everybody that's messaged in. It's great that you're engaging with the podcast. I'll start off with Borough Cragsy. Borough Cragsy starts with, the thing is, they have travelled a lot this week, which is a great point. We've been to Southampton and we've been to Portsmouth, which is ridiculous by whoever does the fixtures, by the way. We've had a tough midweek game against Stoke, and it's our bogey team, 1 win and 9 against them. And they get all their points at home. And it was always going to be a tough ask. He's on about Portsmouth. My question is, does Rob Edwards know his best front 3? We've just discussed that, aren't we? And
No,
how
I
can
don't
he
think
get
he does.
and how can he get Naipan in the team all game?
Yeah, well, I've just explained it earlier on. Play him as a
Hand
10.
in hand.
Play him as a 10, or play him as one of the 10s behind a striker. And that striker
I think we all agree he doesn't know his best front 3. And after the game yesterday in his pre-match, after match interview, he did more or less allude to the fact that part of the next 2 weeks in international break, I think he's going to try and settle on a front 3 and go with it. That's what he was saying after the game.
Can I ask you guys a question? Have you worked out Strelec yet? What type of player is he? Is he a target man? Is he a 9? Is he a floater? Is he a 10? I've not seen enough of him to work out what type of player he is. I know he's a good player. We saw enough of that for that goal he scored against Germany, and obviously his Portugal the other week. So I'm still not sold on him yet as to what position he's best at.
I think personally, what I've seen of him and what I've read about him and looked at, for information about him, he's better playing in a 10, like he is at the moment, not as the main striker, or playing as a striker in a 2. So you'd probably, if you went your way, Bandy, and you had Naipan and you had Strelets playing up front alongside Sen or Conway,
accommodating our 3 best players there.
I think that would be a real successful choice by Rob Edwards to do that. But if he's not going to play 2 up front, I think Strelets is best playing in one of the roles behind a Conway or a Sen. I don't think he's a striker that's going to play up front on his own, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Just talk. We've probably been talking there for half an hour about their forward line. And there's one player that's coming back now, and hopefully he'll stay fit, that for me will get in that team, Riley McGree. And I think he'll make a huge difference. If he can stay fit and get in that team, there's no way he doesn't start for me.
I think that's a huge if for me. He's been out a long time. Is he going to stay fit to play in the team week in, week out with the midweek games? I'm not so sure. I'm a fan of Riley McGree. He's arguably, and I say arguably, one of the best footballers at the club. With these, but I'm not. I don't think Middlesbrough can hang the hat on Riley McGree coming back and making a big impact. If I'm being honest, but I hope he does. Cuts, you mentioned a question or a stat I was going to bring up later in the podcast. I'll bring it in now. It's from Simon Blower, who's been a guest on the show a few weeks back. Simon says that Hadji Wright and Asante of Coventry have started 8 of the 9 games for Coventry. No rotation up top for them. Edwards has been brilliant and the defence always looks very solid. Team has far exceeded expectations, but in my opinion, we now need to pick a front 3 and give them 4 to 5 games at least to start and gel a bit. Which I think we've just been discussing, actually, which is...
I think we all agree with that point. I think it's a great point. It's obviously we can't agree between a lot of us which would be the 3. And I think if you asked all the fans, because it's great having so many options. But if you go into the North Stand where we all sit, you could talk, you'd probably get 5 or 6 different, and I don't think any particular one would win in a vote like massive percentage, because I think the jury's still out. We've got to remember that a lot of these lads haven't been at the club for very long, so they're still trying to learn how the other players play, how to gel with them, how to fit in. I think this break will be brilliant for us. Get them on a training pitch. If I was Rob Edwards, what I'd do is, I've told you that I would start Naipan, Strelic and Conway. I would have them on one team playing for a fortnight against the other team and let them build up a relationship and a partnership. That's what I would do.
You know what happens there, Bandy? You know what happens then? The Borough meme kicks in and we come back with 3 injuries.
Yeah. Just going back to Si's point about the Coventry strikers, great point, spot on point. However, they're established players in that team. They were scoring goals last season as well. So they've already firmly embedded themselves into that system. And Lampard is all out attack. We're trying to look for a little bit more balance. And like I say, I don't think Edwards is 100% sold on who can do what yet. He's still trying to find out. And like John says, it might take a little bit more time to work it out. But no serious panic. We still are capable of scoring goals because we have some quality players in the team now. Certainly better players than what we had last season. So we've progressed massively. We could be nitpicking here. We're doing all right.
Yeah. David Wennington has come in with, he thought we looked leggy in the second half on Tuesday, and this manifested itself today. Didn't make the most of the limited chances we had, and not having Morris and Hackney firing made us pretty toothless. International break has come at the right time for us. We need some time for some reinvigoration. Well, I agree and don't disagree with that one, David, because Portsmouth played on Wednesday night. We played on the Tuesday night. Portsmouth had an unchanged team on Saturday. We made 4 changes and we've got the better squad. So I would have thought if anybody should have been looking leggy yesterday out the 2 squads and sides, I would have said it should have been Portsmouth, not Middlesbrough, especially when we had the motivation knowing that if we had won, we would have went into the international break top of the league.
I'm just going to counter that with how many miles we've put in. Portsmouth were at home.
Yeah, I get that.
And also, 4 changes.
But they weren't on the rat lad, John, from Middlesbrough to Portsmouth. They were on like the first class flight. You know what I mean? It's only an hour.
Did they fly?
Yeah, 100%. Why wouldn't they?
4 changes is quite a lot as well, in my opinion. To ask a team to go out and play with some fluidity, it's tricky. Especially when you're playing against a team who are hell-bent on sitting in and making it so frustrating for you, it's untrue. But I'm going to say credit to them because that's the way they played and they got the points.
Absolutely.
I'm not one of these fans that moans about teams sitting in and making things ugly. You know, Stoke did it to an extent in that first half, and then, you know, they decided to open up a little bit and go for it. So we're going to have to learn to combat the way other teams play.
Yeah, definitely. It's coming. As I say, we're being teams know now that we're a good side, we're good players, and they're going to make it hard for Middlesbrough. No team's going to lie down and just let we walk all over them. They're going to make it hard, and that's for Rob Edwards to find out how he's going to get Middlesbrough to solve the puzzle. which Neil Baker's alluding to here. He's saying 5 at the back or 4 at the back, guys. Midfield 2 were outfought and below par today. Switch to 3 in midfield or go 4-4-2. Today's performance was very reminiscent of the Sunderland away game last season. Concede the first goal, they sit behind the ball, and we can't break them down. I think that's what it was, a bit of a surprise yesterday, because since Rob Edwards come in, it's been totally different to the previous season under Michael Carrick. And I think what's probably got people, give them the heebie-jeebies, or, oh, what's going on here? And you can put me in that category yesterday, is it was so reminiscent of a Michael Carrick display yesterday, where we just looked toothless, we looked lack of ideas, players were going sideways and backwards, we weren't taking players on, we weren't getting bodies in the box, we weren't getting shots off. It was a total contrast of what's happening to Rob Edwards. So in a funny sort of way, for me, it's probably a backhanded compliment to Rob Edwards of how good we've been in the previous 8 games. And I'm hoping, like Cuts said, it's a one-off.
If that Portsmouth game yesterday was maybe 4 weeks ago, we probably would have come back and maybe won that. We've shown that resilience, that desire. We came back twice at Preston. We came back at Southampton. So it's in us. But yesterday it wasn't in us, because it just wasn't in us physically and mentally, I don't think. I just think we were physically outfought and mentally outthought yesterday. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's worrying, but it's a mild concern. But I do put it down to us just being a little bit leggy. I used the word jaded on my tweet. Jaded in terms of mentally, not another game, not more travelling. Like you say, that the travelling comfort these days, it's not physically and mentally exhausting sat on a train or a plane. I don't believe it, but it can be physically and mentally exhausting when you get back out on the pitch, having to do it again. And possibly that aura of we're Middlesbrough, we're unbeaten, that's still preying on us a little bit. And in a perverse kind of way, I'm glad we've probably lost that now, because it just makes the manager think, right, okay, we're not sort of unbreachable. We can be got at, so it might make him think of other ways to try and prevent teams beating us.
Yeah.
I think just briefly, one plus point from yesterday, the players never down tools.
No,
You still had the two. You still had the two fullbacks late in the game, bombing forward, trying to make things happen. It didn't work for Hackney and Morris yesterday, but I don't think you can question the work rate. Were we off it? Yes, we were. But I think we just take it as a bad day at the office and move on, and let's see what happens. Obviously, if this turns into a flop and we're saying the same things in 4 weeks' time,
that's a concern.
Then I think we can take the discussion a little bit more seriously. But I just think for yesterday, and like I keep repeating, it's 1 defeat in 9. Let's not forget that. We've had a tremendous start. The players have done, in general, really, really well. So let's hope it's just a little blip yesterday.
We also put a tweet out on the X feed, typical Boro X feed, saying, does something need to change? Showing the contrast from the first few results of the season to the last 5 results. Does something need to change? And Phil Spencer off the Red Radio, he's agreeing with both of you in a way where he said not really, nothing does need to change at the moment. The only thing would be settling on a first choice attacking unit to build a bit more cohesion. But you can't blame him for trying out a few different formulas, given their all new faces that's come in. So Phil's sort of saying he had to try different ideas in the front 3 to find his best formula. It hasn't worked, but he now needs what we've just said. We really need to pick a front 3 now and stick to it for the next few games.
Yeah, I think he basically threw everything at it yesterday, and it didn't work. He admitted as much in his post-match press conference. We tried this, we tried that. Sometimes it doesn't work, and you got to credit opposition.
Yeah. On the other questions, does something need to change? DPM on at D. Well, I can't even see his handle. It's quite a long one. Anyway, he says for Morris to stop shooting, which is fair comment. Michael RC says too many had an off day today. Maybe too many changes each week. The new players need to find a rhythm. So I think that's a tough one, because
it's a bit of both, isn't it?
It's a tough one because he's made 4 or 5 changes in weeks gone by, and we've come on here and said absolutely brilliant management. That's what was needed. He shook it up, and they've worked. And then the first time he's done it, where I've said earlier on, I didn't think it worked, and you got it wrong. Then everybody's going, too many changes. Sometimes you can't win as a manager. You've just got to hopefully be a lucky manager and get them right more than you don't.
Yeah.
Go on,
I think
Cuts.
hindsight's a wonderful thing in football. I think when we were walking away from the ground on Tuesday, when they've absolutely battered us second half, we've probably discussed amongst ourselves and said he would make 3 or 4 changes, freshen it up on Saturday. Now he has done. And we're looking at it from today and saying we wouldn't. I think hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Well said, well said. Steve Trodden, my question is, should we go back to basics and have the high pressing game, back to basics football, which served us so well the first few games? Or are we slipping back into a passing inside ways, going nowhere football outside our own 18-yard box, inside our own half? Well, I know. I think that's a tough one, guys, because I don't think we were ever really this season a fast-flowing football side, even in the early games. I think I said earlier on, we didn't have a lot of possession anyway, when we were winning, but we were picking teams off on the break with the quality we had when they were pressing us. So I'm not. I think it's more that we've been worked out from the early games of the season, and teams are now giving a bit more respect rather than Middlesbrough actually doing anything different.
I don't think we've done anything different. I don't think our press has been really aggressive. It's been high, but it's not been aggressive. We're still allowing the opposition, to have the ball. We're inviting them, and like you say, then we're picking them off. Look at the goal that we got against Sheffield United. That was a classic case of how Middlesbrough play at the moment. We drew them in, then we hit them long, and Conway was away with that goal. Great finish. So I don't think we've done anything different from day one to yesterday. We've just come up against different teams. 9 times out of 10, it's worked for us. So we've got to persevere with that system and that way of playing. Portsmouth just found us out a little bit yesterday.
I think one thing that has crept in, and it started in the very start of the second half against Stoke, playing short passes out from the goalkeeper. I think we did it. We started that against Stoke in the second half, and we did it a lot yesterday. Now, for me, that's something I want to see gone. We said it all last season and the season before under Michael Carrick. I don't want to see that because I don't think we've got the footballers to do it. So stamp that out. Hopefully you've seen it. It's not going to work. Get rid of it. It's frustrating as a fan as well. I think it creates a negative atmosphere in the stadium. And I think it's something they could lose and it wouldn't affect the team negatively.
I think what happens is, what like I said earlier, when Hackney and Morris come looking for the ball and get deep in front of our back four, it almost encourages us to play out from the back. If you're the goalkeeper and you've got the extra option of Morris sitting in there asking for the ball or Hackney, it almost encourages it. When previous games we've had Hackney and Morris a bit higher up, I think it encourages the goalkeeper or the back centre backs to go a bit longer or get the ball wide to the wing backs. So I agree with you. I think it's something we need to cut out and go back to what we were doing earlier on in the season. I just think Hackney and Morris need to stay higher away from that back three. If you're playing with a back five, you don't need to play with a back seven. In my opinion, you need your midfielders to really be engaging with that front three and getting involved, and one of them breaking into the midfield to link up with a Hansen or a Sen. You need your midfielders to be engaging. As I say yesterday, I'm sure Rob Edwards will know this when he watches the game back, there was too big a gap between his midfield and his forward three yesterday.
My point's not particularly that. It's having Bryn taking goal kicks and having Jones and Fry on the 6-yard box.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I never have.
Go over the
Some
top of
fans
them.
might. Get rid of it.
We've seen enough of that, and we were rolling over playing that system every week last season, having our bellies tickled and getting balls taken from us. So
It invites too much pressure.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
You don't need to invite that pressure. I could understand them trying to pull teams in and draw them in and then going, but we're pulling them in and we're still putting our players in danger. So, yeah, go over the top. Hit them high, hit them on the flanks.
Our last question today is from Daz. Daz says, why don't our players seem to take people on anymore? First thought is to turn and play it back. Do you think it's a possession tactic and not to lose the ball type thing? Why don't we just run at them and they'll back off?
I think we saw it yesterday, didn't we? It's hard to take a player on when there's another bank of four beyond. They had so many sat in yesterday. There was no propensity to take anybody on because you were going to lose it. Like we talked about Hansen. He was taking players on everywhere, which I admire, but you've got to do it in the right areas. and you touched on it, Dicko, Hackney and Morris, they were so far deep that they weren't involved. So we had nobody really to take anybody on, and we certainly didn't have anybody to fire off any shots. Although when we did fire off some shots, they were pretty pointless and redundant.
I think the pitch yesterday as well at Portsmouth, it's a tight little ground, tight little stadium. It didn't really suit yesterday to get the space for players to go taking players on. It was very compact yesterday. And the game was, I think the game was very evident from early in the game. Probably one goal was going to win it either way. It was that type of game. Whoever got the first goal were then going to sit in. I think if Middlesbrough had scored first, we would have done the same. I think we would have sat in and made it difficult for Portsmouth to break us down as well. That's why it was a big moment when the goal went in.
As bad as we were, we still created that golden chance where it just come off. Strelec couldn't quite get there. If that goes in, you're thinking, well, we've played crap, but we've got another point. Here we go. We're in business. But fine margins. So I wouldn't get too carried away just yet about how poor we were yesterday. I think it was just a blip.
Yeah.
But listen, I'll be pretty keen to point out when it's not a blip. If we're on a run of maybe 4 or 5 and we're still playing the same way, can't break teams down, conceding. I thought it was a good goal. I thought they picked us off beautifully yesterday with that switch ball, switched across again. Great finish. But it was in acres of space to put that ball away. And we can't be too hard on Solbrain. Did go through a load of bodies. It was windy. And it went straight through his hands. It was a mistake. So he's been brilliant, though. He'll just move on, forget about that, and he'll be brilliant next game, I'm certain.
Yeah. Right, guys, we'll wrap it up there. Just to say, we're going to come back after the international break again. We need a rest. We need to get Bandy's massages and Cutsies massages, get them ready for the run into the next 6 games coming. Ipswich on the Friday night to get them up to speed for the next podcast. So we'll come back after the international break on the Sunday after Ipswich, I think. Thanks for coming on, guys. Brilliant. Great to have your knowledge and your expertise on all things Borough. I think we've covered as much as we possibly could on the fans' questions, and I hope you appreciate the boys giving honest answers. Sometimes we can be critical. This season it hasn't happened. We've just been ultra, full of praise because Rob Edwards has got literally everything right. Let's hope when we come back after the international break, we'll get back on track and get ourselves back top of the league. Yes, Cuts?
Let's hope Rob Edwards' man management's as good as that. Knowledge and expertise, we'll take that, Bandy, won't we?
All day long, mate. Brilliant.
Right, remember, Borough fans, don't say typical Borough. Watch it, listen to it, and we'll be back after international break. Up the Borough.
Up the Borough.
Up the Borough.